Hi, and welcome back to my series of interviews with social media experts. So today I'm excited to welcome Mel Carson. Mel is a former Microsoft advertising evangelist, and today he owns his own agency called Delightful Communications. And Mel is also the author of Pioneers of Digital. And I'm going to let Mel tell a little bit more about himself. Hi, Mel, welcome.
Hello, Lisa. How are you doing? I'm talking to you from a very sunny Seattle. Whatever your students think about the Pacific Northwest, it's probably just as hot as Florida up here right now. But I'm thrilled to be here. Yeah, I used to work at Microsoft for many years, 7 years, as starting out as their community manager. And then that kind of role evolved into the digital marketing evangelist, and really my role was to go out into the industry and talk about not just what Microsoft was doing in the digital marketing space, but also really talk about digital per se, and try and get people to understand the power of using social media and search to amplify their marketing messages. If you think back to 2005, it was pretty much in its infancy now, and it was a great job to be paid to go out there and basically talk and blog and try and get people enthusiastic about using digital media to advance their company's image online.
So back in 2005, that's when you started your role as an evangelist. And so today, as a social media manager, and our students are, the future social media management stars. So how do you describe today's role as what does an evangelist mean, or a brand advocate in simple terms? How can you explain that to the students?
I think the best way to describe an evangelist is somebody who has a very inherent understanding of their own company and their own company's products and services, but also a very inherent understanding of what their customers or potential customers need to know, not just about the particular product and service, but the problems and issues that the customer has, and why they need your products and services. If I was to take a really good example, which would be John Gagnon from Bing Ads, his role is to evangelize and really talk internally about how to speak about Bing Ads and PPC and search marketing internally, to get internal teams enthusiastic about the products, and really be a conduit, a kind of bridge between the company and the community that you're trying to that you've identified are the people that are perfect for your product and service. So if you were to think about traditional marketing tactics and techniques, it's really kind of segmentation. So what John now does for Bing Ads, and what I did at Microsoft Advertising, was identify those communities that I could get involved with and get involved in, whether it be speaking at conferences, whether it be writing articles, either on my own blog or on industry publications and websites, and really kind of becoming the face of the company. Because it's one thing now, with social media and the digital space being so crowded with all these companies vying for people's attention, what we're finding is actually that people connection, actually having a human face to a company, helps engender a lot more trust in that business. If there's a kind of go-to face that people can ask questions and sit down and have a conversation with, rather than just interacting with a brand. So in today's space, there are kind of internal advocates for a company. So a company like Microsoft has lots of people who are out there in the industry talking about it. But then what they're also doing is trying to influence other people in the industry in their particular industry, to really talk about their brand and be brand advocates for the brand. So it's about really looking from the inside out and connecting with the community, and it's always integrated with traditional marketing and digital media. But what we've found is it adds a really trustworthy halo effect to whatever you're trying to do.
So you have your internal set of evangelists and advocates, and then you're looking to attract external, so
Yeah,
advocates and evangelists that might be just your, your biggest fans, or it could be the media who, might love your product or service,
yeah,
right?
yeah. We see digital, and especially with the work that I do with Majestic SEO, which is all about links between websites, and which is more about links between websites, but we see that links between people really pay off. So making sure that you have really good relationships with journalists and bloggers, and yes, your biggest fans is important, but the way that you build that relationship is really also very important, in that it's not just about you asking them to do things for you, but that there's some kind of value exchange. So a typical example might be a technology company wanting their fans to talk about their new widget or their new product or their new piece of tech, but what they should be doing is also not just asking for people to talk about it and tell all their friends that it's great, but they should be using those advocates and those fans as a way of getting feedback on the product and really involving people in the process.
From the
Um,
beginning, right?
right from the beginning, yeah.
I love this quote that I saw on your website that I'm going to read about you, actually, but I think that it's a great segue into talking about the connection between social and PR. So the quote is from the VP of Global Marketing Solutions at Facebook, and she says, Mel Carson is a gifted digital storyteller who lives and breathes our belief that all marketing and PR should be social by design. So that's an awesome quote to you and just also in general.
Yeah.
So as social media managers, and our students that are watching this also, their major is most likely public relations. They're in the College of Journalism. So what are some connections that you can share with them on the importance of social media, public relations, and search and storytelling?
So I think the main thing for PR students, professionals coming into the industry now is to really understand that PR has the opportunity to be so much more than press relations. And what I mean by that is kind of traditional PR companies are all about the relationship with the press. And because they're getting a lot better, but because there's still some old traditional attitudes out there around social media and really how important it is, and a lack of understanding on the power of digital, but also some of the more technical kind of tactics and aspects, especially when it comes to search and SEO. I think that it's really important for students to understand now where PR fits in an integrated marketing mix. So with the marketing team, with the sales team, and the messaging that they might be pushing out, via call centers or when they're out there face to face, with the search team and the PPC team, to really pull together and work on an overarching strategy that takes into account competitive analysis, but really thinks about, I mean, the quote talks about social by design. It's almost being digital by design. Some examples are, in my previous role at Microsoft and other clients that I come across, PR tends to be a little bit segmented and off to the right, and social media definitely seems to be a little bit siloed as well. And what you would find, especially with some clients and traditional companies is a marketing manager would be creating a piece of content like a video, and then they'd have had it been working on it for a couple of months and they'd have spent thousands of dollars on it, and then they'd kind of come to me and say, hey, can you help me make this go viral? That isn't the correct process. What you need to do is think about and be part of that conversation when it comes to that content right from the start. What is the message that you're trying to get? What is the strategy? How does it differentiate from the competition? How can you pull together all the different elements of, okay, this is one video that we're going to create. How is a journalist going to react to us pitching it to them versus a blogger versus putting it on our homepage? How can we make it so it's almost a one-size-fits-all, or how can we adapt it so that it's relevant to different people along that kind of life cycle, and make sure that it's relevant and compelling, and maybe sliced and diced and slightly adapted, but in the core there's something about that content that makes people want to like it, makes people want to share it, makes people want to link to it. And I think that that's one of the things that's really missing, is that people kind of think of social as being this kind of nice to have thing that, you know, somebody else is going to do over there because, you know, they really understand Twitter and Facebook, but they don't think about it at the core. And I remember back in, I think it was 2009, was one of the first really good examples I can give of a kind of integrated marketing effort. Was if you go to Google or Bing and search for social media white paper, the #1 result is a white paper that I wrote 5 years ago. It's still #1. It's still being downloaded, and the way that we did that was making sure that we had SlideShare involved. We didn't do a video, but we had kind of infographics, and we seeded it out to relevant bloggers who all linked to it. And still 5 years later, it's as relevant now as it was, because the team could go in and swap it out with an updated one, but we're still ranking #1, and that was based on being really clear about the outcome and being really clear about making sure that everybody was on the same page, both from an infrastructure point of view, but also from a messaging and promotion point of view as well.
That's a great example. So just to kind of underline that with, so putting up a Facebook page and starting a Twitter account, that's not necessarily a strategy per se. There's more to it. What are some other kind of key points to share with social media managers as far from a strategic standpoint that should be taken into consideration?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, during my time at Microsoft, we used to have these brand strategy people who used to sit in, you know, this little corner, and I used to think, what on earth are they doing? You know, I'm here tweeting and Facebooking and creating videos, and it wasn't really till I left and started talking to other businesses as a consultant that I realized that there's a huge value. In fact, it's the best value you're going to get is actually by having an overarching strategy. What I was doing in those days really was kind of just tactics. I think there are, you know, Twitter and Facebook are a wasteland of Facebook pages and Twitter accounts where people have just set them up and they haven't really thought very deeply about, you know, how are they targeting the right audience? Do they have the wherewithal to create the right content? Are they just going to be sharing other people's stuff? Do they have people dedicated to that kind of, you know, as you know, Lisa, the social media scene and Facebook and Twitter and all these companies are constantly updating, you know, their feature sets and changing the way that they ask us to do things and uploading, and, you know, Facebook with the different kinds of, you know, even dimensions of images seem to change all the time as well. So it's really important to have that strategy and be able to take a big deep breath and also do a lot of competitive analysis as well. By basically looking and discovering who your competitors are, and trying to differentiate and trying to find the gaps where they're messing up, or they don't have a presence, or and there's nothing wrong with doing this. And in my book, Pioneers of Digital, there's plenty of ideas from some of the people that have done amazing things on the internet about how they've taken other people's ideas and actually pivoted around them or actually made them better. So there's plenty about what your competitors doing that you could piggyback on and you know, steal a march on them. So I think it's really important to have a strategy that's flexible enough, you know, to take into account all the different changes that go on across all the different social networks, because that's how you're going to persuade the people higher up, who are, you know, your CMO or your senior managers or your CEO, to invest in what is becoming more and more important, is kind of paying for Facebook advertising and promoted tweets and stuff like that, as those two particular networks get so crowded with brands competing with each other.
I did a workshop at SMX on social advertising, and it was probably about an hour workshop on the different various ways to promote via Twitter and Facebook. And when I started it out, I said, I would have never believed if somebody told me 5 years ago that I would be standing up here actually advocating advertising with public relations, because
Yep.
back in the day it was church and state. But there are effective ways to today use the paid side of social advertising to effectively use it in a public relations way where it is acceptable and it is extremely powerful when done right. What would you
Yeah.
say to that?
Yes. I mean, you only have to read. I mean, do a search for Brian Boland, organic Facebook. I used to work with him at Microsoft. He wrote the recent post about from Facebook about how more difficult it is for brands to have that kind of organic reach because there are so many people kind of trying to do the same thing. So absolutely, you know, if you're paying an agency to do your PR, you know, you're paying content creators to create infographics and copywriters to create. There's nothing wrong with being very strategic and making sure that you know, you actually have some more modern metrics than you know, did the journalist write about my story and how many mentions did my brand get this month, you know, in our top 10 tier of magazines and newspapers that we're targeting. Having more sophisticated metrics and being shrewd about how you're promoting them is really crucial. I mean, I've got a Twitter hashtag. I'm promoting me speaking at ClickZ Live in San Francisco next week by targeting their hashtag, and we picked up a ton of followers. And the fact that I'm speaking with Majestic SEO and Brafton have been shared as well. So I'm hoping that will pay off. I mean, I've only spent $100 on it, but we've certainly got about 100 engagements. So I'm hoping to cram that room full of people to come and listen to what me and Majestic and Brafton have to say about social media. So it's definitely something to have in your armory, and forget the notion that social media is free, because it ain't.
And that brings me to our final point that I know that you want to make, and I want to make sure that we cover, is personal branding and how that falls into the strategy of social media.
Yeah, when I left Microsoft, I was thinking about how I was going to start Delightful and what kind of setup my consultancy would look like. And I was very, very careful to be very explicit about what I do, but also very explicit about what I don't do. So I'm not an agency as such, as in I'm not going to run somebody's Twitter or Facebook page, but it's again based on the three things that I found kind of lacking in big business while I was at Microsoft, and that was social media strategy, so really having a proper strategy. Digital PR, so not so much traditional, as I've said, you know, drilling down into that kind of press relations, but being more public relations because of the magnificent opportunity that digital provides us to be connecting with people more directly as brands, and not necessarily just through journalists and bloggers. And then the third thing was personal branding, because being an evangelist, I had my own website. I was an early adopter of Twitter. I got great engagement on Facebook. I talked at a lot of conferences and interviews like this, and I built up a good personal brand for myself within the business and somebody else within the industry. And somebody said to me, well, why don't you start trying to help other people? And the more I looked into it, the more I realized that that CEOs and CMOs and chief executives of some of these big companies, they don't have great personal brands online. They're not very good at marketing themselves when they're in a position of power. So right from the top CEOs of companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, or whatever that, actually all the way down to your students on this course, having a good personal brand through digital is really important, because 80% of searches on any search engine are going to be brand terms, and a lot of those are going to be searching for you as people. And a good example is, I recently was looking to hire someone for my business and had a ton of CVs from a local university here in Seattle. CVs, resumes, sorry, that's an English term. And the job was all about digital PR and personal branding and social media. And of course, I would search for these people online, and a lot of them didn't have any footprint, which surprised me, seeing as they're all sort of 25 years old. But a lot of them didn't have great LinkedIn profiles and were posting all sorts of frightful stuff on Facebook and Twitter, even though they'd put their handles in their resume. And they didn't kind of think about the fact that they need a good brand and a good personal image online, because I think initially for people coming out of school and university, it's important to be buttoned up on that front, for prospective employers. But also the way that businesses are now shifting, and this is what I do a lot with Delightful, is go into businesses and do workshops demonstrating how having a positive social media policy internally can really help drive the needle, move the needle for businesses, because they have these internal advocates at their businesses who know and understand what they publish and what they say reflects, if they do it in a positive way, reflects well on the brand and on the company, and that they can do real damage if they're not smart about what they're talking about online and how to express themselves. So the personal branding thing is set to really increase as we become more digital, and LinkedIn are doing an amazing job. It's no longer the place for people to look for new employment or to stick their resumes. It's a really good professional environment where you can publish and connect and speak to people. So it's really important that people are buttoned up with their personal brands and they're aware of those different tactics as well, because it's not just about the business you work with, but it's also about you and how you express yourself.
So I guess the first step to be a successful social media manager would be to first have a successful, positive personal brand in place.
Yeah, certainly if I think Moz did a blog post about ridiculous Twitter profiles, and I see a lot of people who are passionate about social media and social media aficionados and all this kind of stuff. I think what would impress me most is if you were coming for a job as a social media manager at Delightful, it would be having a really good LinkedIn profile that everything was filled out from the summary and there were some examples of your work, and that from your Twitter account, it doesn't have to be all professional. It can be personal. I have a rule for my Twitter and Facebook, 60-40 rule I call it, which is 60% professional, 40% personal, because I want people to get to know me as a person. Lisa, you're on the other side of the US, but you still know what's going on in my life with my kids, or whatever conferences I'm speaking at. That's important. You don't necessarily want to see pictures of me in a bar standing on top of a bar drinking tequila. I don't do that, but I think it's important that people are aware of the impression that they give, especially if they're in the market for a job, and especially as a social media manager, because it's that is the kind of job that people are looking for. You're not going to be able to edit this. My wife has just walked in.
It's okay. It's okay. That's the real. We're talking about being authentic. It's fine.
Um,
It's no problem.
so that's yeah. It's just important as a social media manager to have that wrapped up.
Okay, well, we've pretty much reached the end of our time right now, but Mel, I really appreciate everything that you've shared, and if there's any last tips you want to get in right now, go for it. If not,
When you're doing a Google Hangout interview, have a big sign on your door saying "Don't come in under any circumstances." That's
on the
one.
on the air, that's what I have to put
Yeah.
outside my door.
Yeah. I think it's really important to make sure that you have some kind of traditional understanding of marketing from a segmentation point of view, understanding a target audience, and also the kind of traditional media side of thing. I think that people can get a little bit, oh my God, social media is so awesome type thing, and it is awesome, but you have to understand it in the context of an integrated marketing effort. So, from PR, from marketing, etc., etc. But you also need, I think, to have some technical expertise. And I'm not talking about being, a major in computer science. I'm saying, understand the basics of HTML and how a website's put together. Understand the basics of, Facebook's Open Graph protocol, or how embedding a tweet might look in a blog post, or how sharing a blog post might look if it was landing in Facebook or Google Plus. And then the other thing is to understand the basics of SEO and algorithms when it comes to search engines and things like that.
Okay, thanks, Mel. So if our students want to follow you, where is the best place that they can reach you on social?
Twitter at Mel Carson. But just do a search on any of the major search engines, Google or Bing, and you'll find me.
Okay.
And I'll send you a link to send out to Pioneers of Digital. I think it's perfect for students to. It's really a history book to really understand how things like TED, how things like Yahoo, how Barack Obama won the 2008 election using social media, how iTunes arrived at the 99-cent price point, and stuff like that. And it's got some good stories in there. And I can't believe I didn't ask you. Maybe you'll be in the sequel, Lisa.
Okay, that would be great. And I'll put a link to the book as part of the recommended reading for this week in the course.
Very cool.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mel. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.